Thus, let's go for some advanced techniques. I've clustered this section in 3 parts, overview of the advanced techniques, and we will go through an entrepreneurial example with the advanced techniques. And then also added just last week is retrieving complex factual information, also a very new technique where we look a little bit at RAG. You might have heard of RAG and what this is and how it's different from text generation in generative pre-trained transformers, GPT. So, one of the advanced and probably the easiest and thing that makes sense to take away here most is the RTF framework. So whenever you write a prompt, try to make it your second nature of write it in an RTF format. RTF stands for role, task, and format. It's not the only and not the right one. There is no right and wrong format. But it's a very common one, and I think it really helps a lot for most use cases that you want to make. So whenever you write a prompt, first you write the role that you have, you write the role that the AI has, you write the relation of your role, then you write what the AI should do, and then you write in what format do you want the results. Do you want to have it in table format? Do you want to have it in a bullet format? Do you want it in kind of sorting or anything? RTF, very easy example from prompt structure. Instead of telling me about global warming, we could ask, as an expert for global warming, so establishing that you should make it somewhat scientific, you will provide me with the key influence factors of human contributions to global warming. This would be the task. Your response will be in table form, showing the contribution factors and an explanation of these factors contributing to global warming, sorted from strongest to weakest influence. This is the format part, and I think this gives a very clear structure or very clear what we want to have from this prompt. Question?
How important is the layout? For example, here you use different blocks. Does ChatGPT recognize it, or what do you write?
I'm actually not certain if it does or not. The format that, in particular, that you have empty lines is probably not important. It's more a help for me of writing the prompt than for ChatGPT of using the prompt. It's very much in the same direction where something appears in the context window is of some relevance, but not of the highest relevance. Again, the more important thing is the attention. And the attention here would be expert for global warming and influences and stuff, no matter where they come in. You could probably write the prompt the exact opposite way and get still the same result. Good question. Okay, there are many more on the frameworks on the internet. Why am I going with this? Because it's easy, it's recognizable, and you can do it for almost every task. So if there are several solutions, I'd rather go with the simpler one if it leads to okay-ish good results. Obviously, so this is one that you might want to use. If you nevertheless find others on some online sources, feel free to use whatever you have. However, I think this is very helpful for what you can achieve. Let's look at shot prompting. For a lot of the tasks we do zero-shot prompting and say, okay, just attribute the videos if you like it or not. This works for many things. However, it can also not work in the way we want it. We had this problem with the attribution of liking a video. that it does not know exactly what it wants. In particular here, the output might be the reviewer, I enjoyed this video as a positive statement indicating, and so on. Again, ChatGPT is babbling quite a lot. The only thing I want from is say positive or say negative, because I want to feed this in an Excel sheet, for example, and I want to sort this at the end by positive or negative. So from the zero shot, we might give it an example and say, like we would do to a coworker or somebody, what format do I want to have this? One shot, review, I enjoyed this video, output, this video is positive. Wonderful. What can go wrong? So now I give it the quote, what a waste of time. Again, I put this from Rotten Tomato or somewhere. And the output is, this review is negative. Wonderful, works, unless it got from that only that whatever I put in there, the output should always be, this review is positive. There can also be an implicit gender bias. If you say this actress is fantastic and this actor is not really good, then every actress is attributed with very good and every actor is attributed with bad. So maybe you want to give it more than one shot and give it few shots to cover every case that you might have. A good review, a bad review, and I couldn't care less is in this case a bad review. So wonderful, we have covered all the situations that we could have. Called shot engineering, particularly interesting if you want to classify data or work with data that you need. Yeah, limitations, it does not has a common sense. Anything arithmetic does not really work. What is fantastic actually, so with the feedback you leave me, I of course will read through all of them, but what works fantastically is to, if you ask ChatGPT to make clusters out of that. So ChatGPT loves language and is fantastic out of that, and is probably a better qualitative researcher than everybody of us will ever be. Not to nicht zu nahe zu treten. But with algorithmic tasks, it's really bad. And the output here, of course, is again just the estimation of the next word rather than a comprehensive understanding of human sentiments. So, step-by-step thinking, we also have been a little bit through that. It's super simple to incorporate in every task that you have. Just add to every prompt that you have, think step by step and explain your reasoning. This should be an easy thing to do. It tries to come up with a first question and jumps over things. This has been a very common example that has always been made wrong in the last year by LLMs, that you say, okay, somebody has 2 balls and he buys 2 more cans with tennis ball. Each can has 3 balls. How many balls does he have? And he just reads, Roger has 5 balls, and he would answer 5 because it does not think step by step and understand that a can with balls also has balls, and these balls are now also in the possession of the question answer. Of the person who is the subject of the question. So we want to answer, we want to add, it's not on the slide anymore, fantastic. We want to add think step by step. This is the one thing you want to take away. Think step by step, explain your reasoning, make the AI forcefully be slower, otherwise it jumps to a conclusion that you don't want to have. It's the same thing. Let's talk about self-consistency for a minute. Self-consistency goes a little bit indeed in the direction of some kind of self-control that the AI wants to have. When you ask complicated questions, one way that might help you very much with getting the best answer is to ask for self-consistency. And the best way to do that is to ask for several ways to come up with the same answer. Thus, it might come up with some contradicting answers, and then the AI can think about, okay, what is now actually the right thing. So let's find three ways, three different reasoning ways, and it comes up with three different reasonings how to calculate the profits per day here. And as you can see, all the three are the same, so we can be rather secure that, that those three answers are correct. Of course, this is a rather simple question, but when we ask, that's the same, of course, what we would do. If we want to create a rocket that goes to the moon, how much rocket fuel do we need? We would rather calculate in 2 or 3 ways and hope that we get the same results rather than building just one calculation and say this is good for now and this should work out. So, does this always work? Not necessarily, because of course the first output is now in the context window and input for the second output. So if you want to be really self-consistent, you would create 3 chats and try to do that. However, if it's something that can be off in the off case of being completely wrong, then you go a long way with just saying, please come up with 3 paths to coming to your answer and build those paths out. Self-consistency, this is also a big research field if you're interested in that, in doing a master thesis in computer science. How can we build self-consistent AI? Because also AI does not care if it contradicts itself, because why should it? It's just guessing the next token. Subtasks gives about prompt chaining and mega prompting. One thing we often do, it goes a little bit in the question for asked before, how big can we ask a prompt, which would be called a mega prompt, if we say, okay, please build an entire plan on going from Earth to Mars. We could make a super long prompt and let it work through this entire prompt. The downside in this, of course, the upside is that we just write one prompt and it goes through the entire prompt. The downside to this is that every mistake or every kind of unwanted context it puts in and takes this as the input context for the next question. The other thing that we could do is a chain of prompts where you just say, okay, we go through the first prompt. When the first prompt is answered, we do the second prompt. When this one is answered, we do the third prompt, and so on. And kind of just on the way or in another way can stay with the prompts. This is something we could build out of the box if we build with the API. With ChatGPT, we need to put this in by hand and adjust by hand. However, the chain of prompt is a very helpful tool if we have some complex thought where we think we need some intermediate answers for the LLM. This is exactly where we go for the chain of density thinking, where we say, okay, how many times can the AI generate its own prompts? Because of course, not only can we give the AI the input and say, you need to go through these 4 prompts, but also we can give the AI the task of, please come up with the steps that you should go through yourself, and then do those steps. With the problem being exactly that it gets more mediocre every time it does that. And what has been found out 2023, so quite recently, is if we go to the 4th, the 5th prompt, and being ever denser, chain of density is something similar, a little bit different, I'll talk in this in the next sentence, then the AI-generated content gets substantially worse than what we have with a human-written prompt. So prompt chaining is basically just telling the AI, here's a complex task, please come up with subtasks. For example, you want to build a car, what would be the single steps that you do? Please execute those steps. Then in the first step, it will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's do this. Step 1, I'll conduct this. Chain of density is a little bit the same, but we want to condense it every time. So you want to build the car, you want to engineer the car, and do it 5 times iteratively, engineer the car, crash test the car basically, or feedback this from a customer perspective, take the feedback as input to engineering the car, do that 5 times. This is called chain of density engineering, and this is where this chart's originally stemming from. The more we do that, so if it does it 3 times, it's improving the quality. If it does that more often than that, it decreases the quality again, and we are better by giving it the human touch, at least at the stage of 2023. By the way, this also happens with feedback. The more feedback cycles we have, the worse a human work gets. So, chain of density prompting could look like this. So we give it here a very elongated prompt of saying repeat 1 to 3 information entities, and basically you can read through this at home. What it basically says that the steps should be conducted subsequently, and once you're at the end of the last step, go through the first step and try to improve with the feedback of this loop again. And it does that, and the chain of density name comes because the density of information gets increased every time, but also it gets more mediocre every time. Entrepreneurial examples, so how can we use that now if we are entrepreneurs? And this is something we would like to do with in the exercise after the break. We want to look at a problem space. So we look at a problem space and want to find something that we can innovate. A problem space, very short, we also go through that in the prototyping microclass. We have a customer group, somewhat homogeneous. They are trying to look for they are trying to reach an objective. To get this objective, they have obstacles and they have boundary conditions. So how can we get there? And to get through that, we can use AI prompting. So we say, research the goal, the boundary conditions, and the obstacles. Second, create a way to research the goal, overcoming the obstacles. Third, judge the viability, feasibility, and desirability in your solution. 4, implement the feedback and repeat 4 times. This will be something that I would love you to try out after the break in an exercise, to come up with a way of prompting. Of course, you will have to give the problem space, whatever you find interesting, whatever kind of problem you find worth solving, and find a prompt that gives you a good path to potential solutions. You will see it's not super trivial, but you will also see that prompted right, AI can get you quite some mileage for what you have. So, there are basically 2 ways we can do that. The one is we let it think step by step from the first solution. So either we are very explicit or we are very implicit. Do task first, do task 2, do task 3, think step by step, do all the best practices that we have, get out the preferred solution in the same way. Or we say, you come up with a list, and this is also that I would love to try out. You come up with a list that you should do and go through these steps yourself. Because you are already a successful entrepreneur, and as this successful entrepreneur, I want you to go through it, want you to work through it. Those are 2 things that you should do. Don't worry, I will show the instructions after we have our lunch. And then chain of density, go through it 3 times without us checking what we have. And if we tried all those 3 methods, the very manual method, go through all of this, and we take what comes out, let it do it ourselves, so prompt chaining, do it ourselves on chain of density prompting. Then we can discuss, and this is what we'll do in our round, where do we think, do we get some output that we can actually use with, that we can actually live with, and that we can consider building some solutions on. So again, this we'll do after the class, blah, blah. and retrieving factual information. And this is the last thing we will do. First of all, did you get this? Okay, wonderful. And last of all, one very new thing and one new addition, retrieving factual information. You know that one of the problems of AI used to be hallucination. So when you ask it a question, it would come up with a solution and would not check if this is actual factual information. It got way better with that, but still it's not a completely solved problem. And there is an AI solution that forces of retrieving complex factual information. And it's the fantastic thing because I can talk about one of my favorite genres of piano music and AI at the same time, which is nothing that is too often, and it's rag. Rag is a classical blues music. Scott Joplin is very famous of writing that. It's so much fun to play on piano. Everybody who can play piano in here should try to play rag. Everybody who cannot play piano, why not playing piano? You should learn playing the piano. And the question now is that on this particular piece of music, the Maple Leaf Rag, very famous piece of music, we want to know the key. And what happens in a pre-trained transformer, such as ChatGPT, we say, what is the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag? It goes through the embeddings. We have been through that. So it tries to get from the human language in the tokens, and from the tokens in the embedded space. It gives that attention that we say, okay, key and Maple Leaf Rag, knowing that key in this terms does not mean something to open something, but it's a musical key that we are looking for. Okay, we have attention, and in this embedded space, in the neural network, we make the calculations, and we learn that the language head says most likely it is A flat major. But now we have a piece of information where we don't need the most probable solution, but we need the right solution. There's only one right solution. It is the right solution, actually. But it also could be wrong if we give it a too high temperature, or if we allow it to be too creative. It might say something completely different than A flat major. So there is a new technology which is called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And this works a little bit differently. There we would say the prompt is still, what is the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag? But from that, it first creates a query. So it says, okay, in the Maple Leaf Rag, find the key. So the embedding space looks a little bit different. So it tries to retrieve from all the knowledge it has on the Maple Leaf Rag and tries to find the key. So it's not going in a general multi-billion space of embeddings, but it goes to a retrieval and wants to basically go to a library, pick out the right book and look at the right information. So it's not try to build me something in the style of the Maple Leaf Rag where you need such much information, but you just need one information. And from that it retrieves, it fetches all the information on the Maple Leaf Rag and generates the right answer and says, okay, the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag is A flat major. The great advantage of this is no matter how complex the information gets, it retrieves the actual information that has been in the data set and not trying to get to a meta space. So I think you can think of aspects where this might come in handy. Again, as a generative pre-trained transformer and other transformers are not RAG models, but you can make them behave a little bit like RAG models. And that would be if you prompt it in the way of a RAG would have it. First of all, you be specific. That is something we already learned. What is the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin? Second, you want to have some verification. So this is exactly what the RAG does. It gets an information and then it tries to verify that with its sources. And this is what you try to do here. You say, can you confirm that the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin is consistent noted in classical music literature? When you do that, when you put that, it will throw out several sources that says yes, it's pointing, everything of this is pointing in the right direction. And if it's not, then you probably retrieved the wrong information and you can go back to step one. And the thing you try to, with cross-verification, what are some of the authoritative sources of music textbooks that include or discuss the original key of the Maple Leaf Rag? And when you have that, then you can be quite certain that the data you have is not only generated, but also would be strongly retrieved from first principles. The only thing to notice about that ChatGPT is still not a RAG model and still does not contain a RAG architecture. So we're basically trying to augment and retrieval augmented generation, but still for things where it's super crucial to have the right information, this might be the thing you want to go for. This is also, I would expect you, or I would recommend you to try it with Gemini. Gemini has a feature, Google Gemini has a feature to try to look up the factual content of the information it generates. Gemini does generate rather much wrongful information, but with the click of a button, it tries to retrieve the factual information. Sometimes it works, most of the times it doesn't. But it's a nice way to see both kind of models in action, and with ChatGPT and prompting like this for factual information when you need to make sure it is right. For example, you use it to do your homework in university, which of course nobody of you should do. But maybe if you want to do that, then you want to implement something that is very factful and tries to cross-verify and retrieve the sources of the data. There's a question.
Are there certain prompts that make sure the information retrieved is only based on documents that you uploaded in the background?
The question is if you can make sure that it only looks at sources that you uploaded, and I don't actually know. I tried to make it work, but for me it did not really work. So I also had to cross-verify by saying, okay, where in the text that I uploaded is this written? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I also don't know why, because I think this is a very common use case. But I don't know. There's another question?
Maybe but where did it come from? I mean, isn't this basically somewhat of a database that you fill with context or with data that it's then looking up to inject into the prompt?
That would be, the question is if the what you update is or upload shouldn't that be the database that it looks to? And yes, that should be it if it's a RAG. That's the architecture of a RAG. But then again, the transformer is not a RAG architecture. So the transformer still just tries to assume the next token, and does not really work with databases. So it doesn't really query anything. It just tries to come up with it. Given that shortcoming, it's still amazing, I find, that it comes up with any factual information. But it's not trying to do that. There are a lot of implementations that do both. When you say, okay, when you have factual information, look at the RAG database. But to my knowledge, or to my experience also, it does not do that already. It does not consider your data as data in a database type, but considers your data as context window. Another question?
If I understood you correctly, so can I have this, GPT sits on top of the existing company, the BI systems, in a way that, employee can, or management can interact with the database, but we don't want the answers from general, public data. We want it specifically coming from that, company defined database. Is that what you?
Yes. The question is, can I use company data or my private data and basically put an LLM on this and there's of course prioritizing then the company or my own data. The simple answer is yes. I could do that. That requires a little bit of engineering because I would need to put some biases in there. A bias would basically mean that everything that my data points to is strongly weighted, while the commonly knowledge is less strongly weighted. This is something that some companies already do that. With GPT, if you just upload basically all your company data on ChatGPT, first of all, I would not do that for the reasons that you make it public then. And second of all, I would not expect it to weigh it that strongly that it changes the network. What you're talking about would be fine-tuning, that you adjust basically not the content window, but you adjust the neural network. And this is something that a lot of companies do. That is also something that I think a lot of people expect companies like Apple or Windows to do in some of the next software iterations, that you have a fine-tuned neural network to what's happening on your local machine, that when I ask it, what is my schedule for next week, that it retrieves the data from my calendar and not tries to guess what do people usually do on Monday morning.
Yeah, in that case, I want the GPT to be not connected to the, OpenAI. I want it to be downloaded into our company systems and
Yes.
maybe, self-contained, so that I feel much more secure.
Yes.
But it's the existing BI system is really one way. Or through the dashboards, reports are generated real-time basis, but it doesn't give any answers. Like if I want to have answer, then I'll actually ask my analyst and say, hey, what does this report telling us in a very high level? But
Yeah.
now I guess with this interface, I can ask the question. If the trend says it goes a certain way, I can pose the question, hey, what happens?
Yes.
And through these rack structure architectures, can the system provide me more context? If you lose the revenue, let's say last semester.
Absolutely. So for business intelligence, this can work rather well. So the question, why did we lose revenue, for example, probably is a little bit hard to comprehend, because the LLM just does not know, or the concepts of why should it work, and what is my structure of KPIs and my DuPont chart or something like that. So that might be a little bit hard, but of course you can download models, run them locally. The Llama models by Meta are open source. You can download them, run them on your machine. Mistral models are open source. You can run them on your machine. You can fine-tune them on machine. You can fine-tune them based on your data. You can train them on your data. And you can build it in a way that the answers and the requests never leave your company environment. You can combine it with RAG, that the foundation, the engineering documentation get in a RAG database where it can be retrieved, that your marketing materials, your entire business intelligence data gets on something to be retrieved on, and on that you can query with an LLM. That's all completely possible. That's also something that some companies start implementing. There's also a huge space for innovation if you're in the space of building a company doing that. So absolutely, the tools are all laid out. You just need to put them together.